The last point on Draymond I want to make, because Hanif brought it up, and I've kind of thought similar things. Is it does feel a little bit like the responses have been interesting, right? Like even Rudy Gobert, like everyone is like coming out like we're very concerned for Draymond, and I do think there's because like as a society, especially a society that only has conversations on like algorithmically polarized social media platforms, we have to go all the way over here or all the way over here, right? There's no like middle ground. And I shared Tyler's sentiments. I think it's wonderful that we're taking a mental health first approach with Draymond, but I do feel like very much that is just sort of a buzzword for a lot of people that's being used to absolve it. And like, he's got mental health issues, moving on. And then like when he comes back, we'll say they fixed the mental health issues,
Yeah.
you know, or whatever. And I there was some of that around, you know, what Ja Morant was doing too. Like, I mean, and we talked about it on the podcast. We most of us know friends who've done stupid stuff involving guns or involved or affiliated in some way. It doesn't like absolve them from not making stupid decisions, right? Like you know, you can't say like I have an addiction to showing a gun on IG Live. You can't say I have an addiction to smacking the shit out of foreign bigs in basketball games when I'm frustrated. So, but Hanif, I'm kind of curious for your thoughts on that. Like, we do have to create a society where mental health is more considered and factored in than it currently is, but it can't be like anytime someone is recklessly out of control, it's like, oh, it's a mental health issue. We're not going to think about that any further. We're just going to like move on, right? I mean, is there
Right.
a middle ground there of some sort?
Well, I think it's building a foundation that one actually allows the person in question the autonomy to discuss what they're feeling or going through, instead of allowing and sometimes demanding the public to affix a broad spectrum of mental health crisis, capital M, capital H, capital C, upon someone else. Because who knows? We don't know anything about what Draymond has going on in his head. He gave that Ramona Shelburne interview last night or yesterday. That was not clarifying at all, because he essentially was like, I go out there, sometimes I flip out, I don't know what time it is anymore. It's like, man, that doesn't tell me anything like that. And who knows, maybe Draymond needs to go on some kind of journey that clarifies for himself whatever his mental health machinery is. But I don't think we aid him on that journey as people, as fans, as witnesses. We don't aid him on that journey. We don't enliven or enlighten that journey by just saying, well, he's got mental health issues, because we don't know. Like, we genuinely don't know. And it's hard because I think the nature of mental health in sport particularly is just so, like, I remember when Ben Simmons, when people were like, when Ben Simmons was like, I'm struggling with mental health, people were like, I'll get the fuck out of here. It's like, no, I mean, like, I think something that motherfucker might really be struggling with his mental health if we're just like looking at the profile of his behaviors on the court. You know what I mean? And so I think this idea of, I don't like this player, or I'm frustrated with this player, or I don't want to believe anything this player is presenting as an excuse to. And I do think that mental health can't be used as absolution, but I also think that folks who are in a place to determine for themselves what they're going through need to have the autonomy to do that publicly. And I don't think the way that I know that his fellow players and his peers are talking about him with this sense of concern, but I do worry. Outside, I mean, I can't lie. The Nurkic quote, that brother needs help. That graphic is like an all time.
Yeah,
that's going to be
it's the classic meme right there.
Outside of that, like, I'm wondering if this accumulation of like, oh, I hope he gets the help he needs, but without really verifying what that means, I don't know. I thought the Gobert thing was interesting, where he was like, I feel empathetic. Listen, all love for that. If someone had me in a chokehold like less than, like a fortnight ago, I don't know if I'm gonna be. I don't know if I am going to reach a point of forgiveness that quickly.
Right. I'm shitting in his shoe personally. I mean, that's my go-to move immediately.
I think, I think Gobert knows that, killing him with kindness might be the way to get under Draymond's skin a bit too, right? Like, I think he knows that Draymond's a guy who likes his fire met with fire, you know what I'm saying? And he knows that if he comes out with like, bro, like, why do you care about me more than I care about you? Like, he knows that probably will dig at Draymond a bit too. But to your point, Hanif, like, these mental health issues, it's such an uphill battle to fight, because for so many people, if there is not a line of empathy that they can, traverse to from themselves to the person that's in the discussion, that they have no empathy for them, they have no sympathy for them, they have no concern for them, and especially with professional athletes, it's like, bro, you're making $100 million. What are you sad about? What is going on with, like, you know what I mean? So that's always a battle to fight, especially with people, prominent people who are athletes and such. So, but yeah, it just comes back to, like I said, I've never quite seen a suspension given out like this that is so focused on the rehabilitative aspect. So I'm very much invested in how this plays out over time.
Yeah.
Well, you make a great point on mental health and pro sports, which are in my opinion, they are inherently incompatible sort of things.
That's crazy
in many regards. But like John and I have talked about this quite a bit as like fathers. So I'm in Long Beach. I'm like 2 miles that way from where Earl Woods was like duct taping a golf club to his 3-year-old's hand. And I'm like 6 miles that way from where Venus and Serena's dad was basically doing the same thing with a tennis racket. If I saw that happening today, and I'm a sports writer in Long Beach, so I cover high school youth sports as well, I would see those parents and go, that is abusive and horrible, and I don't like it. And I know as a sports writer that, especially in individual sports, it's sort of the crucible that creates, like, there's not really an individual sport world champion that does not have that has what we would consider to be a healthy journey mentally and regarding their sport. Michael Jordan, the only place that his brain has a context that succeeds is in a professional sport, right? It's not compatible with being a husband or a father or like necessarily a loving member of a community. But I think that is sort of the inherent challenge of sports for those of us who do care about these bigger issues.
Those of us who grew up. Listen, this is wild that you bring that up, Mike, because recently, did I say this? I'll say it out. I'm sure she did not listen to this show, or I hope she does, but maybe she doesn't. I was recently on a date with someone who maybe is a listener, but perhaps not. If she is, you know what I mean?
I'm sure she doesn't listen to this show.
I say that because she was, there's a reason we're saying that I won't.
Yeah, we don't have to get into it for sure. I'm playing with you.
Nonetheless, I was explaining like these drills my basketball coach had me do when I was a kid. Kind of like these passing drills where you're just in the gym and the lights are out and you have to the red light drills, you got to pass to the red light, and I was explaining it. And I was like, yeah, I had to do that when I was really small. And I was explaining how it went. And she was like, that sounds really fucked up. I was like, oh, you know what I mean?
She was like, that sounds like the Red Room in Russia for like training ballerina.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And I was like, oh, that, I guess so. You know what I mean? But like all of us who grew up playing sports, like I grew up playing basketball. I grew up playing soccer. I grew up playing soccer at a very intense level. And when I think about just like some of the drills that my club soccer coach had me do, if I were to explain those out loud to a person now, they'd be like, that is fucking outrageous. But to me, those are things that define my, the shape that I took as an athlete. Also, if the person I went on a date with is a listener, hi, how are you doing? Having a great time. You know what I mean? If not, then you should become a listener.
That's how we get YouTube subscribers, one at a time.
So are y'all saying the mindset it takes to be successful in a sport doesn't give you the space to focus on mental health, or the culture of sports doesn't give you the space?
I think there's an unspoken understanding that you have to suppress that shit. Like I mean, talking drills. We all ran suicide drills. Like, do they even still call them shits that anymore? Like, and
we call them gassers, but in our heads we call them suicides.
And the connotation there was, bro, you need to go out there and you need to give it your all, even if it kills you. Fuck how you personally feel comfortable, within yourself. Right. You need to go out there and try to fucking die. You know what I'm saying? To get this shit done to achieve the goals of us. So it's always been like an unspoken understanding that you got to suppress that shit and go out and lay it all out for your team.
I think me and you were actually watching the Heat play in New Orleans, and I think it was Battier who didn't chase a ball fast enough, and we were in the hotel, and I said, You need to die for that,
Yeah, I
Daddy.
remember that shit. You need to die. You said you need to die for that shit, fuck nigga. Vividly remember that. Because I
needed that chip. Bro, I needed that chip. Die for that loose ball, my nigga. But yeah, so hey, that speaks to that. And I'm somebody that's in therapy and a mental health advocate. And I'm yelling, die for that when watching basketball. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's a different listen, we all watched
that Coggy D, as Mike says, you know what I mean? Good old Coggy D.
Good old Coggy D, boy.
We all watched The Last Dance, you know what I mean? And like there are parts of The Last Dance where we watched Michael Jordan's teammates look in the camera and say, this motherfucker was out of his mind. And then we watch Michael Jordan look in the camera and in so many words express to us, I was out of my motherfucking mind.
And we cried tears.
Exactly.
Like it's beautiful. That's fucking beautiful.
We watched that like that is beautiful. That is what the high. We watched Michael Jordan say, I invented a reason in my head to make an enemy out of this guy who complimented me. And we were like, that's what
LeBron Smith. We talked about him last episode, yeah.
Right.
And so it's like this thing where I think, and I'm guilty of this as someone who's been in therapy at this point for all of my adult life. I look at sports as a container for this kind of psychosis, maybe, where competitiveness overwhelms all, and it's achieved. You know, Michael Jordan in The Last Dance talking about like he didn't understand how someone could not play with a migraine. It's like, motherfucker, you are out of your mind.
Right.
And we can watch that and say, but he's also the greatest competitor who's ever lived. And so we can absolve. That is what real absolution is. When we can look at a guy like Michael Jordan or someone like Tom Brady or these folks and say, well, in order to get to that level, one has to have a brain that is not like any other brain. And the question is, at what cost? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like at what actual cost? Because it's different. Like I'm just the guy who writes some shit in my house. You know what I mean? Like I am not trying. I can look at The Last Dance and say, I admire that level of competitiveness. I don't want that for myself.
For sure.
Right. I want it on TV. Yeah. Right.
I want that on TV because we can treat it like it's and this is not great either, but we can treat it like it's like reality television, or we can treat it there's the Coggy D, as we say. We can kind of separate ourselves from it. But like, I don't want that for myself. I don't want any level of competitiveness in my brain that would require me to be a kind of performer that Michael Jordan was. That level is frightening. And I think that is that's the two worlds of sport.
Where the rubber meets the road for me on this, and I'm not I don't have an answer for this question, and I'm not asking you guys to come up with an answer, but like I've got a son who plays baseball. He's pretty good. He has my brain when it comes to competitiveness and wanting to be perfect at things and all this other stuff. So I'm also his coach. We had a game this spring. He goes 3 for 4, 2 extra base hits. He threw a shutout inning, pitching. Great game. We get back in the car. I'm like, hell yeah. Like, this is great. Like, this is what all the practice is for. Way to go. And he's pissed at himself because he just missed the right contact on the ball on the one at-bat where he didn't get a hit. He's pissed at himself, like angry. And so I'm sitting there as his coach, like, this is fucking sick. Like this kid, right? Like this kid wants it. Like this, and also as an adult, who knows? Like anything you want to do in life, you are gonna have to be a little bit crazy about chasing after. If it's not baseball, like good, right? Like whatever it is. But then as his dad, I'm sitting there going, I know what the last 30 years of my life was fighting that desire to be like, I did really good at something. I could go home and rest now, or I could be really angry that it could have been a little bit better. And so as his dad, I'm sitting there like, buddy, you had a great game. Like, let's just go get some ice cream. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I don't know how to, like, I'm just sort of giving him his space and trying to provide some guidance, but it's like, I don't know what the answer is to that, particularly in the context of sports. In the context of he wants to be a college professor, let's go have some ice cream, right? You know, like if you want a job that like 100,000 people have, cool. If you want a job that 100 people have, you probably have to be nuts enough to beat out the other 99,900 people, right? Like I just don't know there isn't a correct answer to that question. But I don't know. That's who we're rooting for is people who made that decision early in life, you know, like it just went nuts. I mean, they're all crazy to some extent, truly.
Yeah. I just don't know how you can find any type of fine balance, any type of balance when you have to be fanatically obsessed. You know what I mean? I don't know like what a balance on that looks like. I will say that I think LeBron has probably handled it the healthiest of any of the all-time greats I've seen. Like, I mean, because, you know, to just boil shit down, like, right, the biggest knock we had on Kobe, if we're just boiling it down, is he didn't trust his teammates enough, right? Biggest knock we've got on Bron, if we boil that shit down, he trusts his teammates too much, right? Like, LeBron is someone who isn't necessarily burdening himself with all of his aspirations. He's someone who realizes that, you know, this is a team sport. I can't get it done without my guys, right? Like he's not letting that shit, he's not, you know, taking on all the weight on his shoulders, right? And I think that is a pretty healthy way to, you know, kind of maneuver to that. And even then, Bron is still obsessive, right? Like probably has the best fucking physical regimen we've ever seen.
You know, he goes to sleep at 7 p.m. Like, I mean, he gets all his teammates talking. He gets like 10 to 12 hours of sleep a night. As a father of 3, I don't care how rich you are. He gets 10 to 12 hours of sleep every night.
It's 10 hours of sleep a night?
How do you
even
Dwayne Wade has said he'll go to sleep at 6 o'clock like when they're trapped. Seriously, he will get in bed at 6 o'clock and not get up till 6 a.m. till he's working out. Like,
I feel like you have to take medicine to take that to sleep that much. Like you'd have to take something to. I physically do not have the ability to sleep that much, regardless of what I did in the day prior. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's crazy. But I think that the team aspect is why he's more, you know. He's better in life because like he's built the team around him for the things outside because he understands the importance of having a team. You know what I mean? But when you're the type of person who's like, it's me, I have to do it, like a Kobe, like a Jordan, that's more difficult to step away from and operate differently. Like, you know what I mean? Like with him, with Bron, you know, knowing he needs a team on court and approaching the game in that way, even though he's a fanatic, you know, he's a fanatic when he comes to obsessing over the game. You can do that in life and be fine. Yeah. You can't be, you know, I'm that, you know, like I gotta drop 50, you know, LeBradford Smith, I'm coming for your ass, whatever the fuck his name is. You know, that's not gonna translate well in your everyday life. So I think that's why Bron's been better off the court, is because that translates better, you know, off the court. You know what I'm saying?
Did you see that clip of Isaiah Thomas, not Zeke, you know, ITT, whatever you want to call him, of him crying when he would come into tears when he's talking about his time he spent with Bron in Cleveland? Did you see that?
Oh yeah, I saw that. I saw that.
Yeah, it was. You know,
what did he speak to? What did he speak to in the clip?
He was saying, bro, like he was like, you know, I never saw someone so dedicated to basketball. He was like, when we had, you know, practices, he was there 2 hours later. When we had to go to the gym, he was there an hour earlier and left an hour after everybody did. Like, and he was like, you know, and we all know that shit did not go well for IT and Bron as a basketball player. Right. And IT admitted that. He was like, shit ain't work out for us on the court. He was like, but just, you know, I'm a better man for having experienced this man's dedication. He's like, you know, we still homies to this day. So yeah, I'll drop that in the group chat. It's a really moving clip.
Damn.
I mean, Bron, I see, right, the way he talks about it, Bron approaches the game like it's a 9 to 5. You know what I'm saying? Where like he comes in and does all the other things that need to be done off court before the game starts, like getting the work done and all that. Not every athlete approaches it that way. But I think like to be successful, like how like what Mike was talking about, like his son, like, you know, like Vinny tripping, you know, damn, to be successful, you almost got to find what you can do better at in sport, in any sports. It's like if it doesn't, as long, and I think being mad after the game, that's cool. But if by the time he's getting ice cream, he's okay, I think that's healthy. You know what I mean? Because unless you win the fucking genetic lottery, you know what I mean? You have to be obsessive to play a professional sport. You know, if that's what you want to do with your life. You know what I mean? And even if you win the genetic lottery, if you're going to be great at it, you have to win the genetic lottery and be obsessive, right? At this point.
Now,
you know what I'm saying?
Antonio Pierce used to tell the story about LeVar Arrington, that when they played football together in Washington, they would be in film meetings, and it was a running joke that the coach at the end of the session would go, "And what's LeVar's job?" And LeVar would say, "Go get the quarterback." Those athletes don't really get to do that, even if you you won the lottery or whatever.
In the NBA, the game can change in an instant, but no matter how the action unfolds, you know DraftKings Sportsbook has your back. This week, new customers can score $150 instantly in bonus bets just for betting $5 on basketball. Win or lose, you get an instant dub.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code Jenkins, Jenkins. Jenkins. New customers can get $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on basketball. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code Jenkins. The crown is yours.